Hill. No fat tax to address obesity. And in sports, Barbados Pride and Guyana Jaguars locked in a keen battle for honours at the Oval.
Credible, balanced, committed. This is the CBC Evening News.
Very good evening to you. I'm Lisa Broom. This is the CBC Evening News. In our top story tonight, 5 people are now homeless after fire destroyed 2 houses at Reese Road, Britain's Hill, St. Michael this morning. The mother of one of the fire victims says those affected include her daughter and her husband, their 2 children and grandfather. The fire victim was visibly shaken and too distraught to speak. Fire officials were quick to respond to the call, which was made at 8:50. Station Officer Denton Foster says the response time was mere minutes.
The first appliance arrived at approximately 8:59. On arrival on scene, we noticed that there were 2 timber buildings involved. The 2 timber buildings housed 5 people, which 2 are primary school children. That the fire completely destroyed 2 of the timber buildings and slightly damaged a stone building, which was a bakery.
Chairman of the St. Michael's South Constituency Branch, Henderson Marshall, was at the scene. The homes are located in the constituency held by Prime Minister Frandl Stewart. Mr. Marshall says he's trying to help the fire victims.
What I have done so far is try to get hold of the manager National Housing in order to get somewhere for them to stay. We also go through the welfare department where we'll get some utensils and those type of things, stove and that type of thing, so that they will have necessary utensils to cook with. And also I will look at the office with Mr. Whitaker to make sure that they get some clothing in the meantime, so that they won't be only with the ones that have on the back.
While financial crimes are generally down, police want members of the public to be extremely aware when they use ATMs. That's because they're actively investigating cases of skimming at these machines. And that's where perpetrators, believed to be non-nationals, use electronic devices to copy information from users' cards and then steal from their accounts. Acting Inspector Mark White of the Force's Financial Crimes Unit says the machines are being tampered with mostly late at night, on weekends, and in low-traffic areas.
I want you to look for strange devices or gadgets that may be attached to the machines when you're making transactions. And you can do this before you insert your card. Look around, see if there's anything looking strange or funny on the machine before you actually insert your card. We also want to encourage persons who are using these machines to cover the keypads when entering their PIN numbers in the machine, because as investigations show, there's some camera attached to the machines that capture your PIN information.
Acting Inspector White says so far about $50,000 has been taken from different cardholders' accounts. He wants card users to check their account balances regularly to recognize any unusual transactions and to generally be aware of suspicious people near the ATMs.
Pay attention to persons in and around the ATM machines when you're making transactions. And also, in some instances, there were reports where persons were there using in the machine for an inordinately long time, flipping through cards and using them. Now, we know that in normal course of business, you know your card, you know which one you're going to use. You don't have to go and flip through 12 cards before you access funds. So these are things, red flags, and you can notify bank officials or the police.
Government strategy to address obesity does not include a fat tax. Instead, Minister of Health John Boyce says it includes encouraging Barbadians to take responsibility for their health. Mr. Boyce's comments came as he addressed the 3rd Annual Health Financing Summit of the Queen Elizabeth Hospital.
Designing diet, exercise and daily activity plans that are suited to the individual's health and physical status, and which are also economically feasible for the individual, is the strategy being advocated to address our obesity problem.
Mr. Boyce wants food manufacturers and vendors, supermarkets and restaurants to exercise some measure of social responsibility in their marketing.
I make it a greater attempt to make the healthier fare as attractive and palatable as fattening and salty foods, which the majority of us find so appealing. I must commend those in the food industry who have already been making steps in this regard.
And Barbados gained some valuable insight into the development of a national health insurance plan. An expert panel was on hand for that third annual Health Financing Summit of the QEH. It was held at the Lloyd Erskine Sandiford Center. We hear more in this report from Kishmar Singis.
This year, Barbados collaborated with JIPA Network. That's a global network of healthcare providers, diagnostic centers, hospitals, and ancillary service providers. JIPA connects patients to top-tier providers and facilities, along with reduced rates for these healthcare services. CEO of the QEH, Dr. Dexter James, says the national health insurance model out of all modalities has the most popular support.
This modality of financing appears to have been adopted by many of our CARICOM countries and beyond. In that regard, we have assembled an expert panel who have all been involved in devising and implementing various aspects of national health insurance solution. With collectively in excess of 150 years of experience, they will expose us to modeling and models of national health insurance funding, as well as their critical success factors. They would expose us to the designs of the benefit plan for an NHI, approaches to cost containment, the content of the legislative development.
Minister of Health John Boyce says the conference, though timely, does not signal any policy shift by his ministry.
This conference will, I'm sure, provide us with additional evidence on which informed decisions can be made on the most effective and efficient financing models suited to our unique social and economic environment here in Barbados. The most recent example of healthcare reform through financing mechanisms, namely the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act passed in the United States, clearly demonstrates that healthcare financing is not a uniform process made to fit into any one geographic, social, or economic paradigm.
The final town hall meeting on healthcare reform is slated for February 29th. The outcome will be incorporated into a paper on healthcare finance reform
for the Cabinet of Barbados' consideration. My ministry is open to all submissions by the public at the town hall meetings, and I personally wish to thank all those who have participated as speakers on the panels and those who have made interventions from the audiences. I wish to clarify here, however, that the submission commonly referred to as a fat tax is not representative of my ministry's policy.
Founder, chairman, and CEO of the JIPA Network, Dr. Castanet, says a national health insurance policy is the way to go.
We believe in today's world that this is a winning strategy. But the models available, because we are in a region where we have islands that are separated by culture, water, and other reasons, we have the problem of collective bargaining and consolidation. This has made national health insurance difficult because all of us are developing our own models. So certainly there's talk in the Eastern Caribbean about developing a joint venture.
Kishmar Singis, CBC News.
Householders have responded positively to messages to keep their surroundings clear of mosquito breeding sites. This from Principal Environmental Health Officer Ronald Chapman, who says the preliminary reports from inspectors involved in the newly launched eradication campaign show good results. The campaign, launched on Monday, is part of efforts to rid the island of the Aedes aegypti mosquito, which is responsible for the Zika virus now sweeping the Caribbean.
I haven't looked at all of the figures as yet because, as you can see, we only started on
specifically on Monday. But the initial figures I've gotten so far, it would appear that Barbadians are really taking the message on board. The inspectors have been finding a lot of buckets turned over and that sort of stuff. A lot of persons seem to be going to the hardware stores now and purchasing things like mosquito dunks and all these other things and treating the water sources around their homes.
And while he's pleased with the positive results, Acting Chief Environmental Health Officer Desmond King promises action against those who refuse to clean their surroundings. He says last year alone, 4 people were put before the courts for harboring mosquitoes.
I have the CHO acting. I'm very committed, the Administrative also committee, PS is committed to putting person before the law court. For the past 27 years, we have tried to use suasion. You know, we would not have one person to see the inspector. In the 1950s, because I had used prosecution to a great extent, persons would have ran from the inspector. In the 70s, in the 80s, we tried to facilitate programs where we can encourage you to be your own inspector.
And you can hear more about the environmental strategies to deal with Zika, dengue and other illnesses on this week's In the Spotlight program, which will be aired this Sunday at 9:30 a.m. on 94.7 FM and 10:30 on 100.7 FM. Education officials were forced to close the Lawrence T. Gay Primary School after a skeleton staff turned up for classes this morning. Yesterday, classes were held on the outside due to an ongoing environmental problem. The Barbados Union of Teachers says some students and teachers have fallen ill because of the problem. President Pedro Shepherd told CBC just 6 teachers were on the Spooners Hill compound and over 400 students. The full complement of teachers on a normal school day is close to 40. The BUT president says the environmental problem persists on the Clark block, which consists of 10 classrooms. We'll have more news in just a moment. Stay with us.
I feel invincible, unbreakable, indestructible, everybody say.
So here is a case of an indigenous plant from the Caribbean being taken and brought over to other parts of the tropical world.
So if you do see a sandbox tree, please take the time to point it out to your children. And if they've never seen one, come down here to Cane Field in St. Thomas and you're going to see a number of these very unique and very majestic sandbox trees here.
Trees are the silent sentinels, Sunday at 7:30 p.m., repeated on Saturday at 6 p.m. Trees are the silent sentinels.
Keep on playing. Learning about life is learning not to give up. Falling and standing up again with you by their side. And for the toughest stains, you can always rely on Breeze laundry detergent. Breeze, with the extra power of pre-treaters, removes the toughest stains, even in a quick wash. Keep on playing. Breeze, unbeatable on the toughest stains.
Distributed by Massey Distribution.
Men are responding to calls to get tested for prostate cancer, but some of them are coming forward too late. This from consultant urologist Dr. Jitu Nebnani, who stresses that early detection and screening is vital to the fight against prostate cancer. He was among the presenters at a seminar on the truths and myths of prostate cancer at the Grand Salle of the Central Bank. His topic, prevention, screening and the detection of prostate cancer.
That's one of the problems we do face in Barbados. A lot of patients present at a later stage of prostate cancer, meaning it's not at an early stage where we can treat and cure. It's at a stage where it's more difficult to treat or it's spread already. So in Barbados, prostate cancer is a significant problem. We have a very high mortality rate, so that's a high death rate of prostate cancer. We have a high incidence of prostate cancer.
Well, Dr. Nebnani says in Barbados, prostate cancer is one of the most common causes of cancer deaths.
Up to 100 men every year die of prostate cancer. Now, there are lots of reasons for this. One of them is probably because they wait till they actually have symptoms to go to the doctor. Now, Dr. Charani will tell you women come to the doctor much sooner than men, because we men don't like to go to the doctor. I don't like to go to the doctor, but that's just how we're built. That's why we will talk about early detection and screening and maybe even prevention.
And in her presentation, Dr. Sophia Edwards-Bennett of the United States says cancer has been projected to increase in the coming decades. She says 40% of cancer cases are preventable, adding that diet is extremely important to prostate health and preventing this type of cancer.
Diet rich in fruits and vegetables has been shown to be associated with a lower risk of developing prostate cancer. Obesity, as a corollary, is not linked to the development of prostate cancer, but in some studies, it's actually been correlated with high-risk prostate cancer. So it's not necessarily causative, but when patients who are obese are diagnosed with prostate cancer, it's usually high risk versus low risk.
In other news now, in the wake of recent attacks on livestock by dogs, the Barbados Agricultural Society is cautioning about letting animals out to roam. In the most recent attack, a farmer lost a number of sheep, including pregnant ewes. Although the matter is nothing new, Chief Executive Officer of the BAS, James Paul, said it can be very frustrating for farmers to lose their livestock. He wants the Animal Control Unit to help out.
The fact of the matter is that if any individual has animals that they cannot deal with, they can call them. They don't need to leave them out there to roam like that. And I think, householders who have dogs should be mindful of the fact that they cannot just leave them to go on people's land and attack livestock in the manner that they're doing, because it means an economic loss. I don't think we understand that in this time of economic stringency, that farmers are looking to these animals as a means of earning an income. And when we allow these dogs attack those livestock, it means then that they're losing income as a result of that.
Barbados is looking at ensuring that at least 5 of its productive sectors lead the way in helping to create a green economy. This information from Minister of Labour, Senator Dr. Esther Bayer, at the start of a 2-day workshop on the green economy at the ministry's Warrens Office complex. Dr. Bayer says the green economy pathway is outlined in a Barbados Green Economy Scoping Study that's been presented to Cabinet. The workshop is being hosted by the Ministry of Labour in association with the International Labour Organization.
It is a roadmap for policymakers and businesses for greening of 5 key industries: tourism, agriculture,